morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Iyori Fulani. We do hope you had a great weekend, as always. Now let's talk a bit about agriculture, that is food especially, against the backdrop of the challenges. We hear about food inflation. There are efforts to, address that. And now because floods are also in the air, floods are expected to hit up to 10 states. We wonder how that might impact the challenge, shall I put it, that we are managing. Now, our guest this morning is Chief Ajuri Ngelale, Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity. He joins us from our Abuja studio. A fine morning to you, Ajuri.
Uncle Yori, it's been too long. Good morning to you and good morning to our viewers.
Good morning, and we shall talk about it. It has been quite a bit. You yourself have been in and out of the country, because you also happen to be the presidential spokesperson on what is it? The green economy. You have that tagged on.
So that's a special envoy on climate action, dealing with climate action, ensuring that our climate action and green economic initiatives are being effectively coordinated from a central clearinghouse within the office of the president. Yes.
Great. So special envoy of the president on that whole area, and there probably will be connections. Now, let's quickly. The president is scheduled to jet out of the country today, later on in the day, somewhere around the afternoon. We were talking about that just before we came on air, and you said that's going to be somewhere around noon, between noon and 1 o'clock. Right? Am I quoting you right?
The president is expected to depart Abuja at some point later today for Paris, where he will be taking part in a very brief working leave.
Okay, exactly. But let's start, because since we started off wanting to talk about agriculture, let's start from an earlier trip that the president had taken, and that was to Guinea, right? And we haven't spoken since he returned. So maybe now might be a good time to find out if there are aspects that connect with our theme today, which is, agribusiness and the green economy agenda that came out of that particular visit.
Thank you very much. So, Uncle Yori, there was an agreement signed. Of course, it was domiciled within the oil and gas industry, essentially a partnership cemented to construct a gas pipeline between the Federal Republic of Nigeria and Equatorial Guinea. This, of course, is an opportunity for us to expand our gas footprint within the region and on the continent. And of course, it's an effective partnership in the sense that this is a country in Equatorial Guinea that has extensive infrastructure within their country for the domestic utilization of gas. And so for us to be able to now have an additional market for export is something that we think is facilitating further regional gas transmission is something that we're very much looking forward to. And you know that obviously has wide-ranging impacts on other sectors, including agriculture and other sectors where you have heavy industry. So very, very exciting win-win partnership struck between the two countries under the leadership of our dear president. I would also say that this visit was not just about signing that partnership. This visit was indeed one which will open new vistas of opportunity of cross-sectoral partnership between the two countries. And of course, a country that is very wealthy in natural resources, as Equatorial Guinea is, and of course the cultural ties between the two countries will be extended moving forward based on the truly warm relations being established by His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu during that trip.
Indeed. Now, over at the Guinea-Bissau visit, that tranche of the conversation, it was really about the president's green industrial vision. Here we are talking about agriculture, but there are industrial aspects to agriculture as well. Any kind of synergy in there? Yeah, I know it's about President Tinubu's green industrial vision. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I think it was just a slip of the tongue. I think you mentioned Guinea-Bissau. So this is Equatorial Guinea. But I would just say that, the focus of His Excellency Mr. President is not just on, establishing partnerships with these individual countries, as it were. Within almost every framework, within the kind of the presidential sphere of influence, the president is actively promoting and pursuing, really in those inclusive developing sectors of the economy: agriculture, manufacturing, construction, those sectors that create, large volumes of job opportunities for our young people and for Nigerians at large. Those are the sectors that the president is actively driving in every engagement around the world. And the engagement in Equatorial Guinea is no different. I think for us, there are a number of things to take note of. We recognize that right now within our country, we have challenges with food security. That's not a secret. The president has not been anything but forthright about some of the challenges we face in this sphere, which is why under the president's leadership, he's taken a series of very important measures that have been accelerated over the course of the last 60 to 90 days, one of which is dealing with the issue of security of our farmlands across the Middle Belt and across the North, across the food belts of our country. And that's why the president has deployed over 15,000 agro rangers to essentially be surveilling and securing our farmlands across the Middle Belt, the Northwest, and the northeastern parts of this country. So that has had a major impact with respect to the confidence that our farmers now have to resettle on their farms and focus solely on producing the food crops that ultimately will go to feeding the nation and reducing and crashing the cost of food across the country. I think when you read reports in recent days, for example, of the prices of food crashing in parts of the country, I think Daily Trust had released a story a few days ago with respect to a sudden crash in the cost of various staple items in markets in Yobe, Gombe, and many other parts of the north. This is not by accident. It didn't just happen. It's happening because the president has worked very hard to, really deal with all aspects of what is frustrating, government efforts at achieving food security in the country. So yes, on the one hand, the 15,000 plus agro rangers, which is being, by the way, increased, that will come to over 30,000 in the months and years ahead. That has had its impact in terms of allowing our farmers to resettle and really focus solely on producing these food crops. On the other hand, the president has obviously approved, a recent measure to ensure that where we have shortfalls in some of these commodities, in rice, wheat, millet, sorghum, and some of these other staple items that are very, very crucial right now for Nigerian families across the country, he's approved a zero duty rate on imports, as well as an exemption of the value-added tax on these goods starting from July 15th and ending at the last day of December of this year. So we essentially have 6 months of suspended import duties on very selected and targeted food items where we have some shortfalls to quickly fill in that gap to ensure that we don't have any kind of food price spike within these very, very central staples that Nigerian families across the country are relying on. So that has also gone a long way to ensuring that we can get the food supply in very quickly, very efficiently, but in a way that does not in any way dissuade local producers. Well, how have we been able to do that? We've put in place stipulations on the new import import duty suspension arrangement to ensure that the investors that are given the zero duty import licenses are essentially those investors that have proven localized milling capacity, right, for the imports of rice products, etc., but then also have validated and verified backward integration programs that they are running within their industries, within their companies, within their cooperatives, so that we have a situation in which we're not just opening up the floodgates for people to just be haphazardly bringing in imported food items at the detriment of our local producers, but that we have really narrowed that gateway in such a way that it is for those who have local capacity for backward integration and value maximization as they bring in these food products over the course of just a confined 6-month window to ensure that Nigerians are not seeing any spikes in food prices over the course of the next few months. So that's part two. So on the part you have agro rangers dealing with farmland security. On the second part you have the temporary importation program of those products which are currently in shortfall. Fortunately, there are not too many products that fall in that category. And then, of course, the president has successfully overseen the implementation of a pesticide spraying of over 500,000 hectares of farmlands, particularly in those boundary states where we have had serious problems with pests undermining the outputs and yields of our farmlands in those transboundary areas, places like Sokoto, places like Kebbi, places like Adamawa, and many others. So we've been able to effectively spray 500,000 hectares of land with pesticides, ensuring that we can also maximize some of the yields and outputs in those areas that had been hard hit previously by some of these pests that are coming in the boundary areas from areas that are even outside of the country. In addition to that, so that's kind of point three. In addition to that, the president has approved for the mobilization of hundreds of thousands of metric tons of fertilizer, of seedlings and fertilizers to farmers across the country. So not only is he dealing with the conditions in which they operate with security, making sure that the ongoing farming processes are not affected by pesticides, but he's also making sure that he's actually giving them the inputs and the supplements they require to be able to have high efficiency, high grade seedlings that can, yield more per seedling than the kind of antiquated and less quality seedlings that our farmers were previously being supplied with. The president has provided over 2 million bags over the course of the last 180 days to hundreds of thousands of farmers across the country of fertilizer as well, ensuring that our farmers have the support in terms of not just the seedlings, but the fertilizer as well. In addition to this, I need to add this point. The president is saying, look, on the one hand, it's one thing to deal with the security question, which he's doing. It's another thing to deal with facing the pesticides that are limiting our outputs, which he has done and is doing. It's another thing to provide the seedlings and the fertilizers, which he has done and is doing. It's another thing entirely to enhance the pie. Right? What do I mean by that? If you have, for example, 10 hectares of land in the country, of course, this is a very small number. If you have 10 hectares of land, for the sake of my illustration, in the country, and you're looking at how to optimize those 10 hectares of land to make best use of the available 10 hectares of land being farmed in the country, for example, the president is saying it's not enough for us to do all the things we're doing to optimize the existing 10. While we're dealing with the existing 10, let us also ensure that we have created the conditions to have an entirely new set of double the scope really, or enhance the cultivatable land in the country, so that we're not just facing what is existing, but we're also looking at making sure that we provide the land, and prepare the land for the next generation of farmers in the country. So while he's doing all of what I have just mentioned, he's also ensuring that we have over 1 million 1 million hectares of newly cultivatable land that we are presently in the process of preparing, right? So that while we optimize what we have, we're also creating the groundwork to mobilize, new generations of farmers and young people into this newly prepared, newly cultivatable land, so that we can expand dramatically our food production within the country, not just for self-sufficiency, for satisfying local demand, but also ultimately for net export to the rest of the region and the continent at large. This is the vision of the president, not just dealing with today's problems today, but also simultaneously preparing the way for the future of the Nigerian agricultural sector and the future of the Nigerian economy. So the president has set out for the provision and preparation of 10 million hectares of newly cultivatable land that we are currently, and this is something that will not be on news, it will not be on TV sets. These are things that the president is quietly doing. But that he's preparing 10 million hectares of newly cultivatable land in the country. But in phase one, it's immediately 1 million hectares of land, and that process is aggressively being advanced under the framework, under the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security. So you're dealing with the present, you're dealing with the future. In addition to that, the president is presently restructuring the Nigerian Agricultural Land Development Authority, NALDA. Not just in terms of the organization itself, but also in terms of its policy implementation frameworks, to ensure that it is a forward-looking and visionary institution that is facing not just today's agricultural realities and landscape, but is also working assiduously with the plans the president is putting in place for tomorrow with respect to not just the scope of land, but also the preparation of those ultimately who will be manning the land. Now, the other question that comes into this, Uncle Yori, before I land, is once you have the cultivatable land, once you have the farmers that you've prepared, the young generation that's coming up, as well as the existing, population of aging farmers. These are middle-aged and older farmers that dominate the landscape, that we're working assiduously and actively toward transiting to the younger generation. Once you have all that in place, what you now have to deal with is mechanization. Because you can have the best seedlings, you can have the best equipment, you can have all of these things. But the problem you're going to run into is that if you have not dealt with the issue of mechanization, if you have not, transited from these manual, antiquated processes that undermine the efficiency of your farmers and really don't get the best out of the hours that they put in on the farms, then you're ultimately not going to get the maximum result out of the new fertilizers and the new seedlings and the new farmlands and the new generation of farmers that you're putting in place, and the security arrangements and the pesticide control, the pesticide provision, and all these things that I've talked about. So what the president has now done is said, look, we have multiple portfolios of mechanization implementation that we have put in place under the leadership of this president. One was pre-existing before he came in, that was put in, that was started under President Muhammadu Buhari. Then there are 3 others that have been put in place under this administration of the president. The one that kind of was kick-started under President Muhammadu Buhari was the Green Imperative, right, which is a public-private partnership, effectively partnering with the Brazilian government through the provision of a 995 million euro facility for the establishment of agro-mechanization centers across all local government areas of the Federation. Essentially, these are centers in which we'll be employing millions of young Nigerians to essentially not just produce, but also maintain agricultural mechanical instrumentation. These are tractors and other allied products that will add a level of productive efficiency to what our farmers are doing across the country. So that was on ground. The president is aggressively advancing that. Then the president said, look, that is not enough. What we need are also some emergency measures to ensure that we can get as much agricultural mechanized instrumentation to our farmers as quickly as possible. So what he now did is he's now been able to establish a framework with a Belarusian company to bring in, I believe, about 5,000 tractors, 5,000 tractors in phase one, and then thousands of more tractors per year over the course of the next 5 years, in a 5-year arrangement with the Belarusians. That is already ongoing. The president has separately put in place an arrangement in a partnership with John Deere, which we all know is the global leader in tractor equipment, particularly with respect to quality as well as quantity. Worldwide, John Deere is kind of the brand to be reckoned with. The president has been able to secure an arrangement with John Deere to separately, from what I've mentioned, provide thousands of John Deere tractors per year on a year-to-year arrangement, ensuring that we can quickly mobilize these tractors into the hands of our farmers across the country. In addition to that, the president has a separate working arrangement that he's working on to ensure that with the Chinese farms, we're able to also bring in a separate tranche of thousands of tractors to meet the shortfall that is present in the country. So if you put all these together, and then you add to that the last point, which is the issue of agricultural credit, right? Ensuring that we are in a position to provide the financing. It's one thing to provide all of what I've mentioned, pesticide control, the new farmlands in addition to the maximization of the old farmlands, fertilizers, seedlings, and all of what I've mentioned. It's another thing to also ensure that they actually have the capital, right? Access to actual capital, to not just sustain their existing operations, but to upgrade those operations into a higher level of productivity and to employ more Nigerians on their farms, et cetera, et cetera. So what the president has done is the president is presently restructuring the Bank of Agriculture to ensure that the Bank of Agriculture is better positioned to bring in to bring in the finance that is needed so desperately by our farmers, by millions of farmers across the country, recognizing that the way that this is going to work is not by simply printing naira at the Central Bank of Nigeria or distributing funds from the Central Bank of Nigeria, as had been the case in the past, but that the solution is mobilizing private capital and mobilizing donor capital from around the world through a structure and a process that the international community will respect. And this is why we have to reposition the Bank of Agriculture and other institutions to ensure that when we are, looking at opportunities.
It's also very exciting and interesting. And talk about a marathon answer. You actually managed to mop up all the questions in one flow. All the questions that could have been asked, you've managed to mop them all up. But I'm wondering, you also, I was reading somewhere, you are chairing the Presidential Steering Committee, overseeing the establishment of Nigeria's first green industrial zone. So I wonder if a lot of what you've just said, that's why you could be so copious with your answer, is coming from, work there, your understanding, and what you are able to cite from there. Now, I ask this against the backdrop of, we spoke at the top about the green industrial vision of Mr. President, but there are other critical climate change action initiatives. Now, I'd like to hear about that, because agriculture depends very, very largely on the weather. And, of course, what with all the satellites, we are being technical as we can be there. But we must have the right conditions. And if those right conditions are indeed in place, and we then get the expected bountiful yield, I wonder if storage could turn out to be a weak link in the chain, since we've complained about that in times past. But I have this suspicion that all of these are probably within view of work that needs to be done in that regard. We're not bringing transportation into it yet, just being able to store. Would you like to comment on all of that, starting from your role as chairing the Presidential Steering Committee on establishment of Nigeria's first green industrial zone?
Absolutely, Uncle Yori. This is something I'm very excited about and very passionate about, of course. And I continue to be absolutely humbled by the confidence that the president has reposed in me to to lead this effort. Let me start by saying that all of what I've described in the agricultural sector is not so much a function of understanding gleaned from my experience as the Special Presidential Envoy on Climate Action, because really we're not dealing so much in agriculture as much as we're dealing with some of the more ancillary aspects that are important to agriculture, such as clean energy, right? Solar electrification, as an example. So there are some points of nexus, some points of linkage, but I think that what I've described is more of a function of my work as the special advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, and just having a very clear understanding of what His Excellency Mr. President is doing, what he will do, and what he has done. And then, of course, I've been fortunate to have the institutional memory gained from the years of experience spent in working under President Muhammadu Buhari's administration. So that institutional memory is also part of what you've heard from. But let me just say, Uncle Yori, that with respect to the question you've asked, which is very, very important, one of the areas of linkage between climate action and green economy and food security and agricultural development at large is the issue of power, right? How we can get clean, off-grid power to our farmlands across the country, dealing with issues, as you rightly mentioned. A major one is storage. And fortunately for us, we have a visionary as president in the person of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who fully appreciates every aspect of what is holding our farmers back and every aspect that is undermining our ability to achieve food security. And in addition to everything I've said, one of the areas he's tackling through the implementation of his own Renewed Hope Infrastructure Development Fund is cold chain, which is storage, making sure that for the first time in our country, our farmers will have access to widespread rural refrigeration facilities. These are the facilities that will keep and store yields and crops that have been produced before they go to the market as a transition point. Because as you know, Uncle Yori, one of the great tragedies of the agricultural sector in our great country is the fact that up to 40% of our yields are not making it to the markets, which obviously creates scarcity, which obviously increases prices for Nigerian families. When in fact, if all we did was to get all produced yields and crops from Nigerian farms into the markets without spoiling, without being eroded in any way, we would have probably even met the issue of food security in our country across these very core staple items. So the president has said, look, we have the solution to that. It's multi-tiered, but it's mainly two things. One, we have to invest massively in cold chain. We have to have solar-powered refrigeration facilities across our key food production hubs in the country. He's doing that. He has already put that in the implementation plan of the Renewed Hope Infrastructure Fund. The second one is what you mentioned earlier in passing.
I beg your pardon, Ajuri. That sounds exciting, and indeed I'd like to return to it because I really am interested in the technical aspects of agriculture as could be imported into our own farming. But in the meantime, Otumba Debo, calling in from Abeokuta, is on the line. Good morning to you, Otumba.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for calling in.
Good morning, Ajuri Ngelale.
Good morning, my dear brother.
Again. Okay, I have three issues to talk about. First is the issue of foodstuffs that the president gave approval for importation into the country for 6 months or so. I observed I went to Ilaro recently, 3 weeks ago, and I still found the customs and security agencies confiscating the grains that are brought in from neighboring countries. They say that perhaps the presidency has not gotten in touch with the other security agencies, and that is happening the accessibility of foodstuffs into the country. This from this area, from the southwest. I want you to react to it, whether they need to be informed or formally make sure that the rice and the beans and other food products brought in traders, not necessarily government. Or is it through the airport, seaport alone, not land borders are not concerned. I answer to that. Then I want to suggest that this agriculture that you mentioned for the northeast, northwest, should also be extended to the southwest, southeast. We have a problem. We have problem with the elders also invading the farms in the southwest, particularly the time. So, I want to talk on the green economic agenda you mentioned. I want to advise that the government should launch the agenda, launch it like they did in the Green Revolution. You also do this all over the country and make sure that people are giving fertilizers and feedings, and ensure that all state governments are also involved, not federal government alone.
Okay, thank you very much, Otumba Debo. Ajuri Ngelale himself led the way by giving multiple answers. You have now come up with multiple questions. I had to come in at 3. So, Ajuri, he put 3 issues on the ground for you. Please go ahead and tackle them as you will.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Otumba. I'm always excited to hear the passion and the voices of those who contribute on this program, and it's in large part because of the way that you handle this program, Nkoyori. So well done to you. Let me just say that, look, the process of ensuring that every part of this country is carried along in the reforms being undertaken by this administration under the leadership of Mr. President in the agricultural development sector. It's absolutely primary for us that every part of the country is carried along. Maybe I should have specified earlier in stating that the President is focused on preparing the ground for newly cultivatable land in the country, preparing cultivatable land in the country. I should have emphasized also that this is going to be in all parts of the country. So whereas we have the large bulk, as we know, of our food production is coming from the middle belt and the core north. Yes, we have extensive production in the southeast, the southwest, and the south-south, absolutely. But just by comparison, we know where the bulk of it is happening. The President is focused on all parts of the country. So he's making sure that we're preparing new lands in all parts of the country, with particular interest in some of these more untapped areas of food, staple production, food crop production, with things like oil palm in Akwa Ibom, rice in the southeast, and many, many, many other areas where there's a lot of economic opportunity if we channel the resources in the policy implementation frameworks in those directions. So we are very much on top of that aspect of what he's mentioned. I think with respect to the question he asked about the borders and how kind of the modalities of the policy will work, I think what's important is the customs, I believe, has had something to say with respect to the implementation of this. But I think it's fair to say that we are making sure that because it is limited to an identified number of investors who have to meet very stringent requirements. This is not the old 1999, 2003 era food importation regime, where it's about who you know in the State House or who you know in Ministry of Agriculture will depend on how you will get licensed to import. That's not what we're doing here. We have a very stringent framework that says, look, if you're going to bring in this food import, it's going to be limited to these particular items, number one. And then number two, you must be an investor who has a certain verifiable capacity within the country, industrial capacity within the country for backward integration, making sure that we're not losing value on those items that we're bringing in. Number two. So this is it. And then of course you have the time bound framework of 6 months. So we're not expecting this to go beyond the end of the year.
Ajuri, I beg your pardon for butting in, but I got to come in again because Ada in Jos has called in. Don't want to keep her waiting too long. Good morning, Ada in Jos.
Good morning. Ada calling from Jos, Plateau State. My friend on television or on radio, I used to listen on radio, that's Ajuri Ngelale. It's Ada, you remember me? Oh, we used to have it hot on the radio. He's an orator. If you listen to Ngelale, in fact, you wouldn't even mind going hungry for the next 100 years. He's doing his job very well.
Okay.
But Ngelale, what I want to make you understand is that, yes, we're going to grow our own food. Even importing food, even no matter how short the period is not the best way to go. We're going to buy that food. We're going to import it using dollars. If it's Naira, let me know. And it's going to kill the local industries as well. That's the way I look at it. So we have arable land. Why can't we cultivate it? And we should move away from this idea of, waiting on the rains. It sounds ridiculous in this 21st century for a country to still be waiting for the rain. Let's do all-round year farming by irrigation and all that. And state governments must be involved. This is must get in local government. It must get to the grassroots. And I'm very happy that President Tinubu has been able to give them autonomy. I hope it will be fully implemented. That's financial autonomy. That is the way to go. Then the fuel subsidy. This is a fuel issue. I have been an advocate of removal of fuel subsidy. But my problem is everything revolves around this hike in the price of pump price of fuel, diesel, and electricity. So even if you have that food, it has to be moved from state to state. How will they move them? When we don't have a functional rail service that can do that, that will bring down the cost of transportation. So we have to factor in all those. That is what is the problem in Nigeria. Nigerians are very easygoing people. We're very resilient. If we have an enabling environment, an average Nigerian wants to work hard for his money. You understand? So that's the way people should focus now. Because the hunger in the land is so much so, honestly. But all the same, that's not about Nigeria. All that I didn't mind. It will get better. Ajuri, thumbs up to you. You're doing your job.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Ada. Now, Ajuri, could you just put it on pause for a while? Let me quickly do this break so we can come back and you can be uninterrupted. Stay with us, please.
You're watching Beyond 100 Days with Nifemi Oguntoye. President Tinubu, since he assumed office,
we are on our way to progress.
6 out of the 8 APC federal lawmakers
I have a movement structure that's going to take back our party in Enugu State. Because this one I'm seeing is tales by moonlight. It's not working.
So I'm wondering what you think or who you think can stop him now.
He doesn't own the party.
One of the causes of inflation is because people cannot go to the farm.
The government still needs to do more so that people can eat.
I believe what we're clamoring for is more responsible use of social media. Not that people just go in there and think that they can say anything to anybody.
Tinubu is not one who believes in the same thing. I mean, he wants to get it done. He will face it. He will get it done.
Yes, the president, from inception of his administration, focused squarely on diversifying the economy and driving in investments to, cushion the effect of everything that we've seen, ranging from COVID-19 to the global commodity shocks, global financial crisis, and all of that.
I was privileged to have worked under a governor who believed in the system, who also built up the system, and I'm going to do same.
All right, that's our show today, everyone. Thanks for being a part of it.
TVC News, first with breaking news.
Okay, welcome back. And our guest is the special advisor to the president, Ajuri Ngelale, Chief Ajuri Ngelale. He's been taking us through the intricacies of the president's vision for the enhancement of agriculture. He himself is actually chairing the Presidential Steering Committee overseeing the establishment of Nigeria's first green industrial zone. And the last caller, Ada, she touched on something. She said that, look, maybe we shouldn't be waiting on the weather. And you had touched on it a bit yourself earlier. Maybe you'd like to elaborate on it because irrigation systems, you'd spoken about massive investments in solar generation of energy. We see where these are working in other climes. So maybe you could sort of bring us up to speed on maybe the idea that we have, if it hasn't actually become a practical, tool yet. This whole idea of being able to farm year-round, electricity, remote electricity not being a problem, off-grid electricity not being a problem because of these initiatives. Sort of tell us where are we on that? Because it's like Nigeria needs to be seeing results in agriculture like yesterday.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Uncle Yori. Let me just start by acknowledging my dear sister, because anytime I hear her voice, I can't help but smile. You know, through the years, we have been together. All my radio, FRCN appearances, she's always called in. TVC has always called in, all the stations. She's a very committed Nigerian and very passionate about the development of the country. So, Ada, God bless you. You're very special to me. Let me say that, the issues she raised were germane, but I think knowledge is, of course, power. Information is very empowering. And so I want to be clear that my own work, no be this one of sweet mouth. It's not about speaking well and blowing grammar. It's about speaking with facts and sincerity. So what I say it with confidence because I believe in what I'm saying, because it's based on data, it's based on fact, it's based on what we have done, not on what we will do. Then I think to the content and substance of the points she raised, which were very important. She raised the issue of all-round farming. That is all-year farming.
Year-round.
Dry season farming in particular. Yes, year-round farming. Now, what we have, this is why I say it's important for us to share the information, is presently we have empowered over 100,000 wheat farmers in the country. The wheat is just one example, though. I'm not talking of rice farmers and many, many other products. Over 100,000 wheat farmers in this country have been empowered through a program run by the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security in collaboration with the Federal Ministry of Water Resources that essentially allows for the provision of irrigation systems, mini irrigation systems that allow for certain crops, crop-producing farms to be empowered with these solar-powered mini irrigation systems, pump systems, that will allow our farmers to continue, generating higher outputs during the dry season. As a result of that, in wheat alone, with the over 100,000 wheat farmers that we've empowered with dry season instruments in terms of mini irrigation systems, we've been able to produce over 300 billion naira worth of wheat that would not have been produced if we had not put in place this dry season farming program that is directly impacting over 100,000 farmers in wheat alone, not to talk of the other staple producers that we're talking about in millet, rice and cowpeas and all of the rest of the various dry season farmers that we're supporting at the moment. So we are already on top of what Ada raised, but again, it's for me to share the information so everyone knows that we're covering all of our bases. Secondly, what we're involved in at the moment is ensuring that...
I beg your pardon. Ajuri. So sorry about this, but you know how it works. So you haven't been a producer yourself, a news producer yourself before your entry into politics. I don't know how much of it, the stuff you still remember, but that was just a little joke. Okay, in Anambra State has called in. Good morning, Oske.
Good morning, Akunyere.
Thank you very much for calling in.
Thank you. Good morning, Ajuri Ngelale. Please, Akunyere, there's something that is bothering me in this in our federal government have already said that they reduce tariffs on importation of flours and other things and other crops. When they are saying the case is dropping down, in Oka here, in Anambra State, case is rising. Like bread we used to buy 2,000 naira. They are selling it before 1,000. From 1,000 to 1,000, from 1,000 to 1,005 to 2,000.
Yes.
Now the bread they are selling 2,000 naira now. They are selling it 2,300 naira now. Instead of going down, it's going up. So I don't know. I don't know whether the things that government said that they have already done, that is accepting us, and that is we are benefiting on it or not, or the people that be sellers. trying to punish the buyer. So I don't know.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, okay, for calling in. It's a I don't know, it's a peculiarly Nigerian phenomenon. In fact, you hear people on the street saying that once a thing goes up in Nigeria, it's supposed to come down when you look at other indices. But they bemoan the fact that it hardly seems to be the case in Nigeria. What better knowledge do you have? I know this is bordering into economic territory, but what can you tell us about that phenomenon that okay just illustrated?
No, I fully am briefed and I understand. You know, based on my work, I don't know that there's a sector at this point that I'm not, abreast in. But let me just say that, look, Mr. Oke's, his assessment is fair. Nigerians are hurting, and around the country, what they see are prices going up. In some cases, obviously, I've mentioned earlier in the program, we've seen food prices crashing in certain parts of the country as a result of the president's initiatives. But we know in terms of the trends over the course of the last few years, prices have gone up. There's no way around that. I think it's very important for us to understand why. I've heard some of the analysis that just basically say, bread or rice cost this yesterday, this is what it costs today. And it's factual, but fact without context, right, will not give you the fullness of the understanding of why something is the way that it is. So right now you have a situation in which even if the government was able to successfully implement all of its agricultural reform, efforts, all fully implemented, we have the right amount of yields coming out of our farms at the right quality and the right infrastructure with the right manpower, with the right equipment, all the things we've talked about. What you're still going to have factored into this chain that has nothing to do with agriculture, for example, but has to do with the market dynamics of the oil and gas sector, for example, is you will have the cost of transportation impacted by energy, right? Ultimately that will be transferred to the end consumer. So for example, you can have a staple crop that's produced on a rural farm. Before it gets to a rural market, right? Or it gets, or even from an industry to a market, for example, where it's already been processed and refined and all of that, and turned into the finished product that it's moving into the market as. What you're going to have is you're going to have that transition cost, right? Transiting that product from one place to another is going to be impacted by the cost of energy. These are things that, there are things that are within government control, there are things that are not so much in government control. Right now, we are in a situation, as we all know, where the price at the pump is heavily intervened upon at the moment through the NNPCL. That's not a secret to Nigerians. Everyone knows that regionally the pump price is near triple where it is in Nigeria. So the difference is very clear with respect to what it is that intervention is. But even with that intervention, you are still going to have some of these market forces that are going to be pushing up and up, trying to push toward the reality of what the value of those commodities are, even if government is stepping in with these interventions in that sector. So when you see some of these things, it's not because government is paying lip service to agriculture or is not doing something in one area. It's just an interplay of multiple factors from across multiple sectors, some factors that are not even under government control, right? But then government's own is to ensure that what is within its control, that it is doing it. So when it's agriculture, it's all of the things I've mentioned. If it's oil and gas, under the leadership of this president, there are massive investments, hundreds of billions of naira investment going into CNG, not just on the supply side, but on the demand side, making sure that we have
sorry, thank you very much, Ajuri. Professor Edmund is waiting to come in on from Enugu. Good morning, Professor.
Yeah, good morning, Yuri.
Thank you for calling.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, good morning, Yuri.
Thank you for calling.
And, good morning to your guest.
Ajuri Ngelale.
To your guest over there.
Yeah.
Ajuri Ngelale. He's a very nice guy, young man, very articulate. I commend him for that. I've listened to all Yes, I've listened to all he has read out about what this government is doing. They are quite commendable. There's no doubt about it. But there's one critical area that is lacking as far as food infrastructure or feeding Nigeria is concerned. We seem we are overlooking that aspect. And that aspect is security. Security is key.
Okay.
So Nigerians feeding themselves. So let him enlighten us on what the government is doing concerning security.
Okay.
Security, we cannot talk about food sufficiency in this country without security. Security has been an antidote. Security has been an albatross of our agricultural development and sustenance of feeding Nigerians. That is my concern.
Thank you very much for calling in, Professor Edmund in Enugu. Ajuri had touched on that very near the top of the program, but this is probably an opportunity for you to delve a bit deeper into. In fact, we're going to have to end with this particular crucial question, because all of what you've been talking about, as the professor is saying, you can't have a lack of security.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Uncle Yori, and thank you, Professor Edmund, for the important question. So, as Uncle Yori rightly mentioned earlier in the program, I think I even started from that point, because I recognize how fundamental it is ultimately to our efforts to achieve food security in the country, is making sure that our farmers can, with great peace of mind, farm. And so for us, mobilizing over 10,000 agro rangers across 19 states of the Federation, with a particular emphasis on our food belts in the Middle Belt, the Northwest, and the Northeast, has been very important. That does not now mean that we have not deployed extensive numbers of agro rangers in the Southwest, South, and Southeast, because we have. But we obviously, it's concentrated in those very large swaths of land that are widespread, where we have a lot of food production going on across wide areas of land. So that's where the numbers predominantly are. So we're doing that, and we're also doing that with a view to scaling up that intervention. So it's not just the agro rangers that Mr. President has put in place, but also making sure that there's effective coordination between the agro rangers that are specialized for surveillance and safeguarding our farmlands, and then the traditional police and the arms of the branches of the armed forces. So it is a collaborative effort, and that's why it's being coordinated in large part by the National Security Advisor to the President in the person of Malam Nuhu Ribadu, who is someone Nigerians know is working very, very hard and achieving excellent results in this regard. So look, there's a lot going on there. I think in closing, Uncle Yori, if I may, since we only have 2 minutes left, you asked me earlier about the green industrial vision, and I really didn't even touch it, because I wanted to focus on food security and what matters to Nigerians at this present moment. But it's going to be very crucial for our people to understand that climate action is not just an existential threat. It's not just something that we're doing to heal the environment and to carry placard and to be activists. No. This is something that has the potential, if we get it right, if we do what we're supposed to do today, to transform the Nigerian economy permanently. What am I talking about? When I was in China recently, in my role as Special Envoy on Climate Action and as Chairman of the Steering Committee on Project Evergreen City, Nigeria's first green industrial zone, I visited the world's largest EV battery manufacturer, CATL, in China. They are the EV battery manufacturer that supplies BMW for their EVs, supplies Tesla for their EVs, and supplies battery systems around the world to various corporations. They are the highest standard of EV battery manufacturing and energy storage system manufacturing in the world.
Electric vehicles.
Now,
electric vehicles.
Electric vehicles, yes. Now, how it works, I want to be very clear very quickly as the program is closing. How it works is they have a system that is totally free of oil, gas, or any other input that would ordinarily be required and associated with industrialization. What they have is an advanced solar power system that allows them to have essentially a set of solar panels in a grid, right? Now that grid will power what we call an energy storage system. It looks like a generator. It's like a box, almost like a container, right? Now, they have these containers that have categories. So you have 1 megawatt, that it can power 1 megawatt of industry. You have the one that can power 5 megawatt, the one that can power 10 megawatt, the one that can power 50, up to 250 megawatts in one box. This is what they've done. This is how far they've gone. In one box. In one box. Now, how it works is that we are working out an arrangement where CATL can bring their energy storage systems to Evergreen City.
Is that anything that we can look forward to soon? It sounds exciting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why I'm raising it, is because we want to bring them into Evergreen City to be the power source for the industries that will be sited in that city. So you're not worried about power transmission lines. You're not worried about distribution infrastructure. You're not worried about oil and gas pipelines in terms of the industry in this zone, because you have a one-stop solution that we have found and that they have now prepared a project design for that is specified and tailored to Evergreen City. This is the commitment that we are arriving at with the support of Mr. President.
Indeed. Thank you very much. We're going to have to leave it here. But as always, when you come on, you force us to invite you again, because there's so much more clearly that, is there to be said. So I want to thank you very much, Ajuri Ngelale, for coming on. And as well, you've been hearing it from our viewers as well. They do appreciate when you come on and give us the lie of the ground. Thank you very much for making time for us this morning. Hope to see you again very, very soon.
Uncle Yori, thank you very much for having me. Let me just say very quickly that, Ajuri Ngelale is here today. He may not be here tomorrow. Nobody's time is permanent. But what I know is that under the leadership of this president, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, this country will be transformed. Though. He's going to do it. Nigerians must support him. He will do it.
It's a fine place to leave it. Thank you very much. That's our program today. Do please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. I am Yori Folani. Bye-bye for now.